everyone, and welcome back to another lesson about Egypt, one of my favorite subjects. So today we're going to talk about the afterlife. Last time we talked about mummification. We talked about all the reasons why someone would prepare a body and why they would do these things and so on. So today we're going to talk about the journey that your soul takes after it leaves your body and works its way through the underworld until they reach Osiris. Osiris is in a place called the Hall of Judgment, where the weighing of the heart takes place. I was going to include this also in this lesson, but then I started researching and there's all this stuff I didn't know. I only use like edu.org sources, scholarly sources, because I want to make sure the information is as accurate as it can be. So we're just going to talk today about something. It's the 12 gates. Some people call them the 12 gates of hell, but they're metaphorical gates that your soul crosses through, and this has to do with spiritual enlightenment. So you're getting closer to your soul reaching enlightenment, and technically I guess like becoming a god, because you cross over at the end after the weighing of the heart into paradise, and that's where all the gods are, and they also call it the field of reeds. So today we're just going to talk about the 12 gates or chambers. Some people say chambers. And I'm not going to write of hell because it's not really the same like concept. It's not, the underworld isn't the same as hell. At least what I understand that hell is. It's not a punishment, it's a challenge and a journey, a feat of strength of your spirit. So when your spirit, your soul, first leaves, now remember there's the ghost, and then there's your soul, and then there's your body. So your soul leaves your body and goes to the sky, because there's a river in the sky and there's a ferryman there. So the river. They believed that even the gods couldn't pass this river, which is why there's a ferryman. So they say, they call it like river in the sky, but technically this is between the earth and like the nether world is what they call it. This is so fascinating to me, and I learned so much. So thank you guys. There's a ferryman. Who is a creature who has eyes literally on the back of his head. So this guy is the only thing that can get you across the river, and he won't always help you. He kind of just, depends on the day and like his mood. So a lot of the time the ferryman had to be persuaded and sometimes even threatened, so you could also threaten him. When a person died, sometimes they're called like sorcerers. I guess you could consider them like priests, but they would do all kinds of rituals, cast spells, is what we would think in like the modern day. And they would do this on the soul of the person who died so that they could make it into the netherworld. So they just want to make it across the river first. That's just getting across the river is difficult. So a lot of these sorcerers would like pray kind of to the gods and then threaten the ferryman that if they didn't let the pharaoh or person across, that it's mostly pharaohs who get this kind of treatment, would feel the wrath of God. So apparently you can scare the ferryman, even gods. That's just so. The place that is across the river where you have to meet all these challenges and get through these gates is called Duat. And this is where the 12 gates exist. In this land, there were gods, demons, and monsters. Maybe this is hell, right? That were all trying to eat you. They were trying to consume you. It's creepy. So we talked about this last time, but when they would bury Egyptians, they would bury them with certain spells. Amulets. Often they would bury them with like a guide, which could be inscribed like on their sarcophagus. And weapons, magical weapons. It's so cool. So these gods and demons and monsters are all trying to get you, and you're going through these gates, and they try to eat you and kill you, and you have to use your spells, your magic weapons to fight them off. Your guide will get you, there's like 3 directions, we'll talk about that in a second. You're gonna need the guide for that. And your amulets are for protection against all these terrible things. So the 12 gates were probably like metaphorical, but there is like a description, and there are 12 enormous impenetrable gates. So these gates were lined with spears and guarded by demons or snakes who were often thought to breathe fire. So the only way to get through these gates was to say the name of the guardians protecting it. So many pharaohs would also be buried with the names. Say mummies. And also the guide was kind of like a map, is what they think, is how it's described, I guess. It would show a land that was actually probably pretty similar to Egypt. And it would be marked with like different like supernatural wonders. This guide describes caverns and mountains. It also describes like a turquoise forest of trees. This is what they think that you would see. They're telling you this is what you're going to pass through, and lakes of fire. It sounds more and more like hell. So these guardians are often considered like demigods or minor deities. And they're said to again be holding spears or knives. So the reason that these guardians existed was because they're protecting the way to paradise. They keep like heaven safe is kind of how they thought about it. So, you know, Osiris is on the other side, and then there's the field of reeds, and not just anyone can get in there. So they're testing you. I mean, it kind of makes sense, you know, like kind of like based in reality. Like you might have different gates in like a house that people would have to get through before they could make it to your house for protection. You might have guards at those gates, you know. Interesting. So there were 4 directions that you had to go. And each direction had 3 gates. Some people think they signify the sun, the moon, and the stars. Each of the 3 gates in each 4 directions. So they also think that each gate was associated with a celestial body. These connections with these celestial bodies are thought to have immense spiritual energy. They also often had gods and goddesses, like, you know, minor deities or even major associated with them. So there's like one gate where Isis and Nephthys are associated with that set of gates in one of the directions. So, just an example. So some like archaeologists or anthropologists think that there are 12 gates because there are 12 hours in the night. This is associated with Ra, because Ra has to travel through the gates. Ra's the sun, travels through each hour a different gate on his way to the underworld. So you also had to have a knowledge of the gods that existed there. Like, in your life, you had to study the gods that were there so that you could impress them and show that you're worthy of being in heaven. So, the 12 gates, metaphorically, are thought to be kind of like have like a dual meaning. Dark to light. It symbolizes life and death, where you go through the threshold and you're reborn on the other side. Like spiritually, because you have crossed that, you've been reborn like a more enlightened soul. So each time you pass through each one, this happens. So the last thing I'm going to talk about today is going to be something that I found really interesting. It's threatening of the gods. Many gods and people actually thought that some of the pharaohs were more horrifying than any of the gods that existed in Duat, because the pharaohs would threaten the gods before they died, and that's what their priests would do also after they died. And they would make threats like that they were going to butcher them, and then eat their bodies. So a lot of pharaohs would leave messages in their tombs. They find these, and a lot of them say that there is a king coming who feeds on gods. That would scare me. That's creepy. One specific threat that they found on a sarcophagus was, or maybe a coffin, was that this king was going to get 3 gods. We're going to tie their brothers down. So it might be a specific god that they were threatening. And remove their entrails so the pharaoh could cook and eat them. had to be like extra scary and frighten the gods so that when they got there, they wouldn't be attacked by them. So part of these threats and the whole thing about like eating the gods is that the pharaohs believed that eating a god would make them powerful. And then they could make it through Duat to the netherworld. So they believed that they could steal their strength, my writing, divine powers, and knowledge simply by taking a bite out of a minor deity. It's interesting because when we get to the hall of judgment and the weighing of the heart, the whole thing is like if you've lived a good life and been kind and generous and all this stuff, and you just ate a god, murdered a god, ate it, stole its powers, and that's fine. Like, that doesn't weigh your heart down. So you can take a bite from a minor deity, or as one pharaoh suggested on his coffin, you can devour the god's heart and then smash his bones and suck out the marrow. This whole thing has just made me more obsessed. So I hope that you enjoyed this very unique lesson today. I learned a lot. I don't know about you. I also want to thank you guys for enjoying these videos because I really enjoy making them. And I learned so much, which I love. So thank you. And hopefully you can join me for the next lesson, which will be the Hall of Judgment with Osiris, Thoth, and who else is there? Mot, Amit, Anubis. And there's a bunch of like kings and stuff too. We're going to talk about the weighing of the heart, which is the final task and the final challenge before you can cross the threshold into the field of reeds and live like a god forever. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I would love to see you in the next lesson.